A man in the forest suddenly heard a sound he had never encountered before, so he immediately recorded it with his equipment. However, when he returned home and played the sound, the walls of his house began to melt in a bizarre way, and even the fruits started to rot mysteriously. This is the newly released supernatural thriller film, Rabbit Trap. In the northwest of Europe, on the edge of the Welsh forest in Great Britain, a man was recording the sounds made by migrating birds over the plains, watching the flocks sway with the wind. He was deeply moved by the power of nature. His name was Darcy, a nature music creator who loved collecting natural sounds and turning them into musical compositions. To capture the purest sounds, he and his wife Daphne had moved to the southwest of the Welsh forest last week. The area was vast and sparsely populated, home to many wild animals, making it perfect for sound recording. Although they had escaped the noise of the city, the infrastructure in this remote region was rather outdated. The old house they rented often experienced power outages, forcing their recording sessions to stop frequently. Though slightly inconvenient, neither of them paid much attention to it. At first, everything went smoothly. Darcy recorded various sounds in the forest every day, while Daphne processed them at home. But that day, something strange happened while Darcy was recording. He suddenly noticed that a puddle on the ground was vibrating rhythmically. Yet the forest itself was completely silent. Staring at the rippling water, he quickly realized there might be a sound frequency humans couldn't hear, so he hurriedly turned on his device to record. After amplifying the recording, he heard a strange frequency through his headphones, but the sound was unsettling. It was short, heavy, and unlike anything he had ever recorded before. Following the strength of the signal, Darcy walked deeper into the forest. When he reached a clearing, the sound grew stronger. He turned around and saw a patch of white mushrooms not far away. Their arrangement was peculiar. They had grown outside of a perfect circular pattern. Curious, he approached to take a closer look, but just as he reached the edge of the circle, he suddenly felt dizzy. When he opened his eyes again, it was already dusk. Getting up, he found himself lying in the center of that mushroom ring. The sudden experience left Darcy anxious. He vaguely remembered collecting sounds nearby, but how had it become evening in the blink of an eye? He picked up his equipment and rushed back to their cabin. He played the sound he had recorded earlier for Daphne. As she listened, Daphne also found it strange. Though noisy and distorted, she could faintly sense multiple voices communicating within it. Could it be some kind of electrical signal emitted by the plants in the forest? But just as they prepared to study it further, something strange happened again. Hearing the sound, Daphne suddenly became excited and walked toward Darcy. Darcy felt the same strange sensation. When they opened their eyes again, it was already the next day. Seeing the scratch marks on Daphne's back, Darcy felt confused. He tried to recall what had happened the previous night, but his mind was completely blank. Daphne experienced the same confusion. While they were still puzzled, Daphne noticed a child in the backyard. She didn't think much of it, assuming it was a neighbor's kid. After breakfast, they played the same recording again. The moment the sound began, the same excitement returned. Daphne even started singing. Darcy realized that this sound could somehow stimulate human emotions. He stepped outside to test how far the sound could travel. When he reached halfway up the hill, the strange excitement in his head finally faded. Just as he pondered why the sound caused such feelings, he noticed a dark shadow flicker behind him. Standing up, he saw a child crouching in the grass on the slope. As soon as the child noticed him, it turned and ran into the forest. Thinking the child might be up to something, Darcy chased after it. But the child told Darcy he wasn't a thief. He was a hunter from the mountain.
I followed the music.
But you could hear that?
Oh yes. Sound travels here.
Sorry about that. We only moved in a few months ago and didn't think there was anyone for miles.
3 times you've apologized already.
Hearing that, Darcy realized he had misunderstood. He assumed the recording had disturbed the child and apologized. Darcy asked the child for his name, but the child changed the subject, saying he needed to check his traps. Darcy didn't think much of it as he still had recordings to finish and politely said they could talk another time. But Darcy didn't know that this casual gesture would soon bring him trouble. Early the next morning, while half asleep, Darcy vaguely heard voices coming from the living room. He thought Daphne was calling him, but when he walked in, he saw her chatting with the same child from yesterday. Seeing the child inside his home made Darcy uneasy, but Daphne didn't seem to mind at all, assuming it was just a friendly visit. After learning that the couple specialized in recording sounds, the young child became curious. He happened to know a few secluded spots where they might capture something unique. Hearing this, Darcy was intrigued. He grabbed his equipment and followed the child into the forest. After crossing the woods, they reached an open rocky area. It was indeed a great place for recording sounds, especially in the cracks between the stones. When the wind blew through, each crevice produced a different tone. Leaving the rocky ground behind, they moved on to a meadow. The surroundings were beautiful. and there were many plants Darcy had never seen before. By the end of the day, Darcy had collected more than a dozen new sound samples. Back home, Daphne began compiling the recordings. While she was busy working, the child visited again, this time bringing a rabbit as a gift. As soon as he stepped inside, he told Daphne to take some time to deal with the vines growing at the front door. He explained that those vines gave off an unpleasant smell and should be burned with gasoline. If they didn't know how to handle them, he could help. Daphne remembered the mushrooms Darcy had seen in the forest days earlier. She wanted to collect more samples, but Darcy had forgotten where that place was. When Daphne mentioned the circular cluster of mushrooms, the child immediately realized what they were talking about. Those mushrooms were called parasol fungi, a poisonous species unique to the region. He led them through the forest. Crossing a valley, they soon arrived at the same place where Darcy had first seen the mushrooms. Seeing that the mushrooms had formed a perfect circle, Daphne found it fascinating. But just as Darcy was about to step inside the ring, the child stopped him.
This is a fairy circle.
After hearing the child's warning, Darcy thought it was probably just a local legend. He didn't believe in such things as forest spirits, but the child insisted it was real. He told them that he once had a younger brother. One day, his brother accidentally stepped into the mushroom circle. A few days later, the boy's body began to swell rapidly, covered in strange growths that made him look like a toad from the forest. Soon after, his brother died of heart failure. Hearing that someone had been poisoned after entering the mushroom circle, Darcy recalled the first time he saw those mushrooms. He remembered fainting for no reason that day. Darcy quickly realized the mushrooms might release toxic gas. It was probably the fumes that caused him to lose consciousness. Luckily, the air in the area had circulated well, so the poisoning hadn't been severe. But then, what was the strange sound that his recorder had picked up? Daphne, who had planned to collect more sound samples, also began to feel uneasy. She reluctantly decided to give up the idea. To thank the child for the rabbit, Daphne gave him an old vinyl record in return. It contained one of her earlier works. During their conversation, the child suddenly asked Daphne why she didn't want children. Daphne grew uncomfortable with the question, but the child continued talking about his own mother. He said she had died a long time ago, and he could barely remember her face. What he did remember was the lullaby she used to sing to him every night before he fell asleep. Then, he began to sing it softly. Meanwhile, Darcy was in the kitchen trying to prepare the rabbit, but having grown up in the city, he had no idea how to do it. In the end, he just made some mashed potatoes instead. After dinner, the child left the house. The couple went to bed early. The next morning, Darcy was jolted awake by a series of loud knocks at the door. When he opened it, the child was there again. Seeing him so early, Darcy thought the boy was being a bit rude. Though annoyed, he still let the child in. But as Darcy was pouring milk, the child noticed the rabbit in the sink. He suddenly flew into a rage, accusing Darcy of disrespecting him. Seeing the child suddenly throw a tantrum, the already irritable Darcy became furious and, in a burst of anger, drove the child out of the house. But the child didn't leave. He stood outside shouting. Hearing the commotion, Daphne came downstairs. When she saw that Darcy had locked the child outside, she felt he was being too harsh. She went out to comfort the boy and learned why he had come so early. He remembered another spot in the forest where unique sounds could be recorded, but it was far away, and the walk would take a long time. That was why he had come early. After hearing his explanation, Daphne felt that Darcy's behavior had gone too far. She took the recording equipment and went into the forest with the child. At the same time, Darcy, who stayed at home, began to regret his behavior. He decided to follow them and apologized to the child. He saw Daphne take a side path, but when he walked over, he realized it led into a cave. As he went deeper, Darcy got lost inside. Unaware that Darcy was following, Daphne and the child emerged from the cave and reached a hillside. But there was nothing special about the place. Just as Daphne was feeling confused, the child suddenly crouched down. He pressed his hand against the grass, and instantly, a strong wind swept through the forest. Daphne quickly turned on her recorder and captured the sound of the wind. Meanwhile, lost inside the cave, Darcy accidentally discovered a small pool of water. The surface of the water was trembling in a rhythmic pattern, just like what he had seen earlier in the forest. As he stared at the ripples, the strange sound he once heard echoed again in his mind. Without realizing it, Darcy felt himself being pulled into a strange illusion, where he saw his deceased father. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself outside the cave. The inexplicable scene filled him with unease. Just then, he noticed several damaged magnetic tapes scattered across the ground ahead of him. Beside them lay a photo of the child and the record that Daphne had given him. Seeing the scratched and damaged record, Darcy felt an overwhelming sense of dread. He hurried to find Daphne, but as he turned, he accidentally stepped into a trap. At the same time, Daphne, who had been recording the wind, was also drawn into a strange hallucination. When she regained her senses, she heard the child calling her mother. The sound of that word triggered something deep within her, and in a panic, she began packing her things and ran out of the forest. But as she ran, she lost her way. Fortunately, the child had been following right behind her, and under his guidance, they managed to find their way out of the forest. When they returned home, Daphne found that Darcy wasn't there. She assumed he had gone out to record sounds again. As the sun was about to set, Daphne told the child to head home, but he refused to leave, saying his house was too far away and asking to stay the night. Daphne wanted to say no, but the child insisted, so she reluctantly agreed. She prepared a room for him upstairs. Night fell, yet Darcy still hadn't returned, which made Daphne anxious. Just as she was about to go look for him, footsteps suddenly echoed outside. Darcy appeared at the door, limping. Daphne noticed something strange about the child and told Darcy about letting him stay. Furious, Darcy went upstairs and roughly demanded that the child leave, but the child grabbed the bed frame tightly, refusing to move, shouting that this was his home. Hearing the commotion, Daphne also felt that the child had gone too far, and together they forced him out of the house. Watching him walk away in silence, both Daphne and Darcy stood frozen. Back inside, Daphne brought out the first aid kit to clean Darcy's wounds. However, at that moment, flames suddenly appeared outside the window. Darcy looked out and saw the vines near the house engulfed in flames. It was the child who had set them on fire. Yet that wasn't the strangest part. As Darcy and Daphne were about to rush out to extinguish the fire, the tape recorder on the table suddenly turned on by itself. From it came the same sound that Darcy had recorded earlier in the forest. As the sound filled the room, both Darcy and Daphne's eyes went blank, and they collapsed unconscious. With the eerie sound echoing, black patterns began to spread across the walls. Those dark markings crept slowly inward, swallowing the room. After some time, the child appeared outside again, then walked straight into the house. Inside, the atmosphere had changed entirely. The once clean furniture was now covered with moss and mushrooms, and the walls were wrapped in a strange organic layer. The child entered the bedroom and found Darcy and Daphne still asleep. But this time, they didn't resist the child. Instead, they invited him to lie down on the bed. The child lay down beside them, as if he truly belonged there, just like their own son. From then on, the three of them ate together, laughed together, and lived as a happy family. However, just when Darcy thought this peaceful life would last forever, the child suddenly said he had to go home. Daphne began singing the lullaby that the child had once sung. Moments later, a yellow, sticky fluid began to flow from the child's body. When he disappeared, the surroundings returned to normal. In the final scene, Darcy and Daphne buried the rabbit inside the circle of mushrooms. It turned out that there had never been a child at all. Everything they saw was an illusion created by that mysterious sound. Though their experience was terrifying, it also made them realize the mysterious beauty of nature. That was the entire story of the 2025 fantasy thriller Rabbit Trap. Overall, the film is impressive. The mountain scenery is breathtakingly beautiful, with forests, meadows, tundra, and caves that blend serenity with eerie mystery. The natural soundscape is refreshing and unforgettable. If you enjoy this kind of story, you should check out the original film. See you next time.